like, I would be more inclined to give the person that committed the crime the death penalty because it's not like a one-on-one thing, I guess, because it's a more thought-out thing. I would assume if it's more than one killing, like even if it's two people that were killed, that's still more, thought into it than just one person. Okay. Premeditation or not.
Okay. So you think that it has to be a multiple killing for you to find the death penalty?
No.
Okay.
That's not necessarily what I mean. I mean, I'm just more inclined to if it was more than one.
Okay.
That was killed.
What about the hypothetical where there's 5 aggravators proven to you beyond a reasonable doubt and 5 mitigators? That you get to assign weight to all of that.
No matter what the case is, I would absolutely weigh the mitigators and aggravators.
Before?
Yeah.
You make a recommendation?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And you make your decision individually and stick with your decision after discussing everything with everybody in the jury room?
Yes, I will stick with what I believe to be fair. Ms. Sinat? Sinat. Yeah. I love it. Okay. Now, I know you believe that it's a difficult decision, right? Very difficult. Which we appreciate that. We want everyone to think that. But after listening to what everybody has to say, okay, you understand that the terminology jury of your peers? Yeah.
Okay. Do you think somewhere in that jury of your peers means people that have the same opinion?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. So, do you think that a diverse jury with all different backgrounds and ages would be a fair jury?
Absolutely.
Okay. And do you think after listening to how we've read the law to you several times now, hopefully some of it's starting to sink in for everybody and they're not. Do you think that you can set aside your personal views for the purposes of sitting on this jury in the first phase and follow the law?
Absolutely.
And then if you get to the second phase where you decide premeditated murder was proven beyond a reasonable doubt, and can you consider mitigation and aggravation and make the burdens on both sides be proven to you, and weigh them and make a decision and recommend either life or death based on all of that. As difficult as it may be, you will follow the law and do that.
Absolutely.
Okay. Ms. Welsh?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Hi. When I'm sitting down, I can't see you at all.
I know.
That's okay.
Can you see me?
Being little as a woman is a good thing. I
need to see you.
Okay, you get to see me. What are your thoughts and feelings on life without parole? Do you think it's a severe sentence?
It is a severe sentence.
Okay. And hypothetically, if you were to find somebody guilty of first-degree murder, premeditated in the first phase, all the evidence and facts were presented to you, do you think that you could sit on the second penalty phase and weigh mitigators and aggravators?
I could weigh mitigators and aggravators and come up with a fair verdict.
Come up with a fair verdict and recommendation to the court for sentencing. Okay. Will you be able to set aside any difficulties you may think it would be for the purposes of making a fair verdict recommendation?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Burge?
Yes, ma'am.
You still having concerns?
Do I have any?
You're still having concerns about the law, not being given the law?
No, I just wanted to make sure that we get a copy.
Okay, well, you can't take a copy home with you.
I don't need that.
Any other concerns with the law?
No, not with the law.
So you're comfortable with following the law, as you said earlier, right?
Yes.
Okay, what about the hypothetical where you have someone found guilty of premeditated murder and now you're in the second phase, the penalty phase? Are you open to listening to mitigators
Yes.
and aggravators?
Listen to both of them and work through and understand the weighting of both of them
Okay.
so that come to some conclusion.
Okay, and you're comfortable making a recommendation?
I have no problems in either life without parole or with the death penalty.
Okay. Well, and the way the law is structured, do you understand that the way the law is structured, you have the must with the life sentence, with certain mitigators are proven over aggravators,
Yes, ma'am.
and then you have the may on the death penalty.
Yes, ma'am.
And you're comfortable with that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Now I'm coming. Ms. Cameron Cosgard. Cosgard. Sorry. I didn't want to be something special yet. Okay. You will follow the law?
Yes.
Okay, and can be fair and impartial,
Yes.
and consider mitigators and aggravators,
Yes.
and weigh them,
Yes.
and if aggravators are proven beyond a reasonable doubt to you. Hypothetically, give you 5 aggravators that are proven to you.
Yes.
You're still open to listen to mitigators before you make a recommendation. And you can consider a life sentence as well,
Yes.
as a death sentence.
Yes.
Ms. Dick?
Yes.
Okay. What were your feelings towards the death penalty before you came in here?
I was in the middle.
Okay.
I'm still in the middle.
You're still in the middle. Are you under the, I wrote down in your questionnaire, there was something in there that you have feelings towards the death penalty. Is that you feel strongly for it, against it?
No, I'm in the middle. I think it's appropriate sometimes and not always.
Okay. Was there any circumstances you could think of that you thought that it would be something that you would feel strongly for?
No.
Okay. So, after hearing the law that's been presented to you and the whole process of a death penalty case in Florida, do you think that that you'd be able in the penalty phase to be able to listen to the mitigators and the aggravators before you make any weighing decisions and give an individual recommendation based on it?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any circumstances that you think only warrant a life sentence?
No, I think you, like everyone has said, you have to listen to both aggravators, mitigators, and take it from there.
Do you feel life sentence is an appropriate sentence in some cases?
Yes.
Thank you. Who's hiding behind there? Is that our little teacher?
Short people problem.
Hi.
That's okay. I can be.
Okay, you've been listening to everybody talk about the death penalty today, right?
Yes.
And we read the law a couple times. You're comfortable with the law?
Yes.
You're comfortable with all the options that you have?
Yes.
Do you understand that there's must for life sentences and may for death penalty?
Yes.
And you're comfortable with that?
Yes.
If aggravators are proven, 5 aggravators are proven, and 1 mitigator, are you still going to be able to consider mitigation, or are you going to just not be able to consider it? It's going to affect you because you found 5 aggravators.
No, I'll consider it.
Still consider it?
Yes.
And make a fair recommendation?
Yes.
Based on everything you've weighed?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell us what would be important to you in mitigation?
Yes. I think it's important to know what was the antecedents that brought us to this point. And I don't mean just if there was a crime involved and it escalated. I want to know, or I think it's important to know, maybe talk to the teachers involved and say, you know, was this young man or person troubled as a little kid? Parents, no parents, mentors, no mentors, nature, nurture. What brought this person to feel like this was the only choice they had to say? Had they experienced bullying maybe, and they felt like they were bullied at this point, and they just, you know what, I can't take it anymore, and if I'm stopped, this is the only choice I have because I'm at the end. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm just saying, in order to make an informed decision, I feel as though I have to know inside that person why was this the only choice this day? What happened 5 years ago, 10 years ago, that felt like this was your choice, and this was the only way out, or the only way to end what was going on in your life.
Okay.
Does that make
So,
sense?
yeah, it makes sense. Or you're open to listening to witnesses that would be presented, any aspect of the life.
Absolutely. It's important.
Okay. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Is it Dejus? How do I say it?
Dejus.
Dejus.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Are you comfortable?
Yes.
Okay. If this gets to the second phase, and like I said, I'm only here talking about death penalty stuff. I know it's difficult to imagine before the trial. But are you of the mindset that you can listen to the mitigators presented, hold the defense to their burden of proof, weigh the mitigators, if we prove them to you by the greater weight of the evidence, and you believe that basically that means that they're true, and you weigh them against any aggravators that are presented that you believe the state has proven to you beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yes.
And then you make a recommendation after.
Absolutely.
So you can consider all of them.
Yes, ma'am.
Any mitigators you're looking for, anything that's important to you to know about the individual before you make that decision?
Not really, because I come open-minded.
Okay. Any circumstance out there in the world that you've come across that you think was worthy of the death penalty or a life sentence?
No.
Nothing? Okay. Mr. Burgess?
Yes.
How are you?
Good.
I'm sure dinner is working out well for the two of you. I kind of would like that, I think. You can't talk funny. All right. We know you have absolutely no peer pressure that would be going on if the both of you were on the trial jury, right?
Yes.
Yeah, against fees. But as far as, and someone else is going to talk to you about all of that stuff, that was just my little introduction. I just need to know about your death penalty views. You originally put that you feel very few exceptions when somebody murders somebody that very few exceptions, they should not get the death penalty, correct?
Correct, and I'm kind of right in the middle.
Okay, now you're right in the middle.
Yes.
What made you change your mind?
Well,
Don't say your wife made you change your mind.
I had never really come across that question before.
Right.
So I wasn't really too sure, but I do feel that it is right in the middle. But
Okay.
there are some exceptions, like with the Sandy Hook killing and all.
Right.
You know.
Okay, so that you're saying that if we get to the second phase, and you're making, at the beginning, you're going to be right in the middle on the scale,
Correct.
and that you're going to be open to listening to the defense presenting mitigation to you,
Yes.
and the state presenting aggravation to you.
Yes.
Okay. Now, if the aggravators outweigh the mitigators, you may choose death, right?
Yeah.
I'm not trying to trick you, right?
Yeah.
I know it's like a process you have to
I
go
kind of had to
through.
think about it.
Yeah, and I want you to. We want
Yeah.
you to think about every step you take if you're on this
I
journey.
do.
Now, if the mitigators outweigh the aggravators, you must choose life without parole, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, the law says that you're never required to choose the death penalty, even if the aggravators outweigh the mitigators, right?
Okay.
Okay. You're comfortable with that?
Yes.
So your consideration of both mitigation and aggravators are going to be something that you'll be fairly
Yeah.
assessing and weighing?
Yes. Yeah, without a question.
Okay. Aggravator, hypothetically, is law enforcement officer. Is that going to overtake your ability and carry your ability to listen to mitigators?
No, it's going to carry a lot of weight, but I certainly will listen to the mitigators.
Okay. You're saying you still will consider mitigators?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Okay. But you said you're on the scale of 1 to 10, you're in the middle.
Correct.
Okay. Hypothetically, 5 mitigators are proven. 3 mitigators. That's 5 aggravators, 3 mitigators. You can still consider?
Oh, yes, yeah.
You're not going to close down until you assess everything.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Chamberlain?
Okay.
Hi. I know, everyone, I just don't want anyone to think that they're not on the hot seat today, because there's nobody that's going to speak. Just the way it had to be. Your original thought had to do with, I mean, we wanted you to be open and honest in those questionnaires. That's why we had to write them and fill them out. But when you specifically wrote the evilness of people, and we get it. We're not here to say that murder isn't brutal, murder isn't horrible. Horrible is a crime that if found guilty, somebody should be punished. We get that. But we've gotten past your personal belief in the media, and now I want to talk to you about the death penalty. Because if you are, in fact, on this panel, like I said earlier, we need people on this panel, we need diverse people on this panel from all walks of life. I said, but we don't need people that are predisposed to not being fair and impartial. In the first phase, and then being able to set that aside, knowing that they found premeditated murder. And when they get to the penalty phase, that phase is kind of a clean slate. I mean, we're not going to tell you can't consider the facts, because obviously that's part of it. But we want to know if you're going to be closed-minded based on those facts, and not consider any mitigation based on your thoughts. And I get it. Everyone wants to follow the law. Can everybody filter that throughout the entire process? That's what I want to know. Because it's just, like I said, hypothetically speaking, it's easy. You know, talk about the mock trial earlier with Mr. Hazel. It's easy to do a mock trial. Let's do a real trial, okay? Because it's real, and there's real people involved. So that being said, based on your own personal feelings, remember when you get to the penalty phase, your individual recommendation is what's important, and it's going to come from you. Are you going to be able to do that?
Yes, I'll be able to weigh mitigators, aggravators, and make a decision then. Yeah.
Okay. Is there any reason for you to be swaying one way or the other before you start? But is not good.
Everybody's got a butt.
I know, I've got some too, but, you know.
You said this person is already convicted.
Okay, hypothetically, a person can be
So,
convicted
in
of
my
murder.
opinion, you have to come up with proven being mitigators to overcome.
Okay. Okay, so are you
I'm
a
not saying
leader?
that I wouldn't consider it. I'm
You
saying
would consider it, but,
I would consider it, but you said you already considered it.
yeah, no, I'm being quite honest with you. The hypothetical is the person, I mean, I can't, how can I talk about anything but a hypothetical? We're at the second
No, it
phase.
would be an easy decision, but it would not be an easy decision, but
to hear a lot of mitigation in order to override the guilty verdict.
The person is found guilty of this.
Of premeditated murder, you can say it.
Hypothetically.
Hypothetically, it would be hard for you to not choose what?
I didn't say it would not. Didn't say it would hard to be. Not hard to choose anything. I said that I have to see mitigators that would convince me that it could be overcome the aggravator.
Okay.
That's not fair.
Okay, so you would
I was
want
going to listen.
Okay. Okay. But are you saying
I
that the
can't make a
mitigator?
decision. I don't know what a mitigator is or an aggravator.
Okay. Have you heard some of the mitigators though?
Some of the...
Anything and everything about the person that you just found guilty that would help you give a reason for recommending life.
Right.
Okay? That you would weigh what is important to you as an individual and give a recommendation.
Right.
That's what mitigators are. Anything that makes up that person.
Okay.
But the only thing that concerns me is the fact that you're saying that the defense would have to overcome the mitigation to overcome an aggravated that was proved to you beyond reasonable doubt. Okay?
Well, you said that it would have to be weighed. I'm disagreeing with it.
You have to weigh it.
Not necessarily overcome, but they'd have to weigh it and make the best decision.
No, and your opinion is fine. I just need to hear what it is. You know what I'm saying? Don't tell me what I want to hear. That's not what we're hearing.
I don't do that anymore.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Mr. Farinacci,
Yes.
are you here?
Yes, I am.
Okay. All right. Do you think a life sentence without parole is a severe sentence?
Yes, I do.
What is important to you to find out in the death penalty phase of a trial before you make a recommendation?
For life or death?
So life or death?
I mean, the 50 people before me, they said most everything.
Okay.
Well, they actually come up with any addition to that.
Okay, but you still need to talk. So you agree with what everybody else has said,
Yes.
okay, and that you're not predisposed to vote one way or the other?
No.
That you can consider everything that's presented to you in the death penalty phase?
Yes.
Okay. We talked earlier with some of the people were kind of being signaled out as potentially not being able to, get to the second phase without potentially being in the jury room and breaking down and crying because this is like the hardest thing that anyone's ever made them do. Okay. Of course, those questions are always asked to women, as if women are the weak people in the room. But as a man, I think that there are some things that would be horrific for you to experience as well. Don't you agree?
Yes.
Okay. And men are not immune to emotions and feelings, correct?
Correct.
What was your answer?
Yes.
Okay. So is it something that you feel that you can get through the entire process without having any type of a meltdown
Yes.
and deciding halfway through that this was not the case that you should have sat on?
Yes.
Okay. Because we need strong people across the board, whether they're male or female. Through that this was not the case that you should have sat on.
Yes.
Okay. Because we need strong people across the board, whether they're male or female, 18 or 70. Would you agree?
Yes.
And that would create the fairness of the trial, not to have people that can't handle it in the end, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you're willing to set aside what personal feelings you have, except for the fact that when you get to the death penalty portion, your individual recommendation, you're going to be assigning weight to mitigation and aggravation.
Yes.
That's proven. And you have no problems with that.
No.
And considering it and making a recommendation.
Yes.
Okay. You're the type of person that won't be swayed in that jury room to, you're holding out, you can't even make a decision. You're going to just make a decision just based on what everybody else is saying you need to do? Thank you. Hello? Hi. No one sit next to the wall there with you? That's you in the wall, your friend? Okay, I want to talk to you a little bit about guess what? The death penalty. Been paying attention to the law? Okay. Anything about it that concerns you? Do you think that you would be able to be a juror that can go through the trial and go to the second phase if need be? Mitigation hypothetical comes at you. You found premeditated murder. Only two options of life without parole and death penalty. You're one of the 12 jurors. Are you going to be able to consider mitigating factors and weigh them? And if they outweigh aggravating factors, you're going to be in that and say, must choose life. You're going to be able to do that? If, after considering all the mitigation and weighing it against aggravators, even if 3 aggravators are proven to you beyond a reasonable doubt, are you going to be able to consider the aggravators and weigh them against the mitigators? And say, hypothetically, you were back there and you said, yeah, there's 3 aggravators, but I don't think they are sufficient enough based on all the mitigation I heard that this individual warrants the death penalty. Okay. You're comfortable with that. And, you know, that's why the statute actually has sufficient. And if you believe that the aggravators warrant it, you're saying that you could choose, may choose the death penalty, right? And at the end of the day, you say, yes, I believe they've proven all those aggravators, but this case still doesn't warrant the death penalty, even though they only proved 1 mitigator. Are you comfortable with the life sentence sustained by your individual recommendation? In following of the law, that would still be acceptable. You would follow the law. Okay. Thank you. Mr. Estorella?
Yes,
Okay. Are you okay with making an individual decision on a death penalty case and recommendation?
yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you've had plenty of time, I mean, how many days? Plenty of time to think about everything everyone else has been saying,
Yes.
which is the benefit of all you had to get to go last. You've already heard it. But you're comfortable in the position that you would be in if you were to be picked on this jury.
Yes, I am.
And you would be comfortable sitting at the second phase, knowing that you've just decided somebody's premeditated murder of the first degree and you only have 2 options.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay? You're going into the penalty phase not saying one way or the other what has to happen, are you?
No.
Okay. What are the things that you want to hear? Think would be important to you?
Everybody's basically covered, you know, background. You have to have all the information and just weigh out the facts.
Okay.
You know,
Talking about additional facts of the person's life, or are you just talking about the facts of the case that you've already determined
about
premeditated?
the person's life, you know, previous, you know, what happened in their life throughout the course of a period of time and stuff like that. You have to have all that information and make decisions based on what you feel is right at that point.
Okay.
And what the law tells you to follow.
Okay. And you could recommend either life or death depending upon the law and whether the aggravators were proven to you or not, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. But you would still consider mitigation.
Yes.
And you understand that mitigation,
There's not a certain amount of them that you have to have. You just got to find one that...
thank you, Ed. You know if I have to talk anymore. That'll be your homework, right? Okay, thank you. Ms. Perry?
Yes, ma'am?
You still with us?
Yes.
Well, it's like a good little spot in that corner over there. Unfortunately for you, you have little people in front of you, so we can still see you. Are you gonna be able to, if hypothetically you get to that second phase, the penalty phase, you've been educated, right?
Yes.
We've been explaining to you what the law is, right? We're not letting anybody off the hook, right?
Right.
We want everybody to follow the law, right?
Right.
We want everybody to understand that the second phase is not a unanimous decision, right? Is that yes?
Yes.
All right, you only get a couple of minutes to talk here. You gotta make it work. Okay, and so if you are selected and you commit to be on this jury, if you're on the second phase, you've already determined premeditated murder, what kind of things on mitigation do you think might be important to you? Okay, this is not a stump question. Have you heard it all? Do you want to hear background?
Yes.
Do you want to hear prior history?
Yes.
Do you think drug addiction or drugs may be something you'd want to hear if it was there? Okay,
State of mind frame at the moment of what the young man was doing.
okay. The why of what happened?
What could trigger him?
I'm sorry?
What could trigger him
Okay,
to make that decision?
okay,
He could have been nervous.
okay. Now, this is all after a premeditated murder has been determined, right? Hypothetically? And if aggravators are proven to you beyond a reasonable doubt, and say 5 aggravators are proven to you and only 2 mitigators, could you impose the death penalty if you felt it was sufficient enough and warranted it based on the law?
No.
Okay, so you're saying there's no circumstances?
No.
Okay. Are there any circumstances that you can think of, anything horrific, chopping up a child, putting it in a suitcase? There's nothing out there, anything horrible that you would ever consider that warranted ever imposing the death penalty? Thank you. Oh, Mr. Brooks. Your son is younger than you, right?
That's true, yes.
So, I would imagine you would be of the mindset that your opinion that you brought him up to interview us, right?
I hope that's true, yes.
So the fact that he is a defense lawyer, is that going to leave such an impression on you that you cannot sit and be a fair juror?
I don't think so.
You've been listening to the law as we've explained it to you for the last couple of weeks.
Seems like it.
Okay, seems like it. Okay, and do you feel on the death penalty question that if you hypothetically have determined guilt in the first phase, premeditated murder, 2 sentences you can give, life without parole, and the death penalty, do you feel that you could sit on that second phase and listen to mitigation and aggravated factors and weigh them,
Yes, I do.
decide if they're proven or not to you,
Yes,
and make a recommendation to the court for sentencing?
yes.
Okay. No concerns there?
No.
Okay, thank you. Wasn't that bad? Miss Amon?
Yes.
How are you? Okay. You never thought about it before? Okay. That could be a good thing, or it could be too overwhelming. Okay. All right. Remember, I have the hard job of picking on each and every person in this room and making them feel uncomfortable. Okay, so it's not easy standing here either, just so you know. It's easy to overlook everybody and just kind of get general answers, but you understand the significance and why I can't do that. Yeah. Okay. So, are you under the belief that you can sit through this entire trial and be at the second phase of a murder trial after you found somebody guilty of premeditated murder and be a part of making a decision as to whether or not that person would be recommended a life or a death sentence by you? Yes. Okay. The law that was instructed to you, I'm assuming you're just like everyone else in this room, you can follow it, right? Yes. Okay. Now, if you're back there and 3 aggravators are proven to you, one hypothetically is a law enforcement officer, okay? You're going to make your own decision as far as to what the weight of those aggravators are, and you compare that to the mitigation that's been presented and proved to you by the greater weight? Yes. Okay. Are you going to be comfortable in that position of your individual recommendation? Yes. Can you tell me, do you think a life without parole sentence is a severe sentence? Yes. Are there any circumstances where you feel that a death sentence is warranted automatically?
Automatically, I would think probably, whenever I think of the death sentence, I usually think about anything involving death of children or anything drug or disturbing. Pretty much where I go to whenever I think of the death sentence.
Okay, which is fine. But now that it's in the real forum here, and you know that this is a premeditated murder case of a law enforcement officer, you feel that if you are here and you make that determination to feel second phase is something that you can go forward with and make a recommendation individually and be able to live with that recommendation, right? Yes? Yes. Okay, thank you. Ms. Sims. Hi, you're like the softest spoken woman in the entire room. Sorry. Maybe people think that's good on the outside, but just for the record, you need to speak up so everybody can hear you. Okay. You said use a gun and you should suffer the consequences, right? That's what you put in your questionnaire, which is perfectly fine. We asked you to give us your opinion. You wrote that down. Is this the type of case that if you were to find guilt in the first phase, if you're sitting on the second phase, that you think that you're already going to have made your thought process is decided? Okay, well that's not in the middle. I just want to clarify. If somebody uses a gun and suffers the consequences, what does that mean to you?
In that terminology, meaning some individual, once they have weapons, they're powerful. They think they're powerful. But at times, people, weak, stressful and tend to do what they did not intend to do, but things can happen.
Okay.
So that's what the reason for indicating.
That's what you were referring to. Okay, so hypothetically then, this is first-degree murder of a law enforcement officer with a firearm. Okay, you were given the charges, and you were told that's what this case is about.
Excuse me just a minute. Whatever that is, please turn it off.
It's my music box.
And I understand when you filled out that questionnaire that was filled out before we talked to you as a group and explained to you the law and what we all know from the outside world. If we're not trying these cases every day, which they don't happen every day, so that would be false. We don't expect you to tell us anything on the questionnaire other than what your beliefs are. Okay? And so when we asked you the question, if you have strong beliefs and you put that kind of answer, we want to just know a little bit more about if you're going to be able to sit on a case of this nature. And I'm talking about the second case, which is the penalty, okay? Which you, to me, you say that suffer the consequences. If you're on the trial and you determine premeditated murder, not just any murder, not just an accident, not just misunderstanding, you've determined that this person was premeditated the murder, there's no defense, self-defense, no excuse was given, okay? You now say, this person used a gun, and you're in the penalty phase, and you have to make the recommendation for life or death, okay? So you said that you are in the middle.
Right.
Okay. So does that mean that the mitigators would have to outweigh the aggravators if they were proven to you?
Well, my decision on that, okay,
Yep.
is based on my individual.
Yep.
Okay, everybody's decision is not the same.
Right?
The reason for indicating each person deserves a fair trial.
Right?
Okay, so again, they're innocent until proven guilty.
Right?
So that's the reason why we're here, to
Yep.
make sure that we're making the right decision, building on facts based on the evidence that we are reviewing to make that determination.
Yep.
So that's the reason why I indicated that statement. Okay, some cases is relevant, some is not relevant.
Okay. So when you say relevant, you say some cases the death penalty
Yes,
is,
that penalty is relevant.
is when you say relevant,
Right,
just to
multiple,
clarify.
the individual coming as multiple murder, my decision would be relevant to the death penalty.
When you say relevant, you kind of mean like appropriate?
Yeah, it would be appropriate, so that's why I indicated it should be appropriate.
Okay. Okay. So that's a case where you think that it would be very appropriate for multiple murders?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hypothetically, you found somebody guilty in the first phase here of a single murder, not multiple. Are you still able in the second penalty, because it's still premeditated, able to weigh and consider the mitigation that's presented to you against the aggravators that are presented to you?
Absolutely, because once again, it's based on evidence of the individual that I will be making the decision, yes.
Okay, I need to ask you this then. Is there ever a circumstance where it's not multiple murders that you feel that you could consider a death sentence? Because this is a single.
Right, but why my decision multiple would be relevant again?
You're saying,
Right.
okay, I'm sorry, keep talking.
But for single, single, it would not be appropriate. There's consideration based on the circumstances.
Okay. Are you saying you would not consider mitigation?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I can make a decision, I'm open-minded.
Right.
Right. Reviewing the facts to make the right decision.
I'm talking about the second phase, not the first
Second
phase.
phase, that's what I'm referring to.
Okay.
In the second phase, I'm open to make a decision, responsible all the facts to make that decision.
Okay. But as the law states, though, you have to still be able to consider the aggravators before you make a recommendation. And you have to be open to that you could choose the death penalty if the aggravators outweigh the mitigators. Are you saying you would not be open to it at all?
I'm following the law. I would be following the
You
law.
would follow the law.
Right decision.
Okay, so you are open to
I
it?
am open.
Okay, so you're open to weighing the aggravators and the mitigators?
Absolutely.
And making a decision?
Absolutely.
Okay, and so the multiple homicides or murders we're talking about, that was just an example for you?
Exactly.
But that's not the only?
Right, but I'm still following the law, making the right decision.
Okay, thank you very much. Magwood, how are you?
Trying to go our cold.
Oh, my God, forgive me. No, don't forgive us. We're the ones keeping you here for days on end. You heard what Ms. Sims just said, right?
Through my cough, yeah.
You're comfortable sitting on a case of this type of charge?
I am. I've given a lot of thought to it, and I would not sit here and say yes unless I felt really in my heart that I could.
Okay. And, 17 putting aside the fact that, we read all the questionnaires. So we get to know a little bit about everybody that you may not know about the neighbors in front of you, behind you. And so we know that you've suffered a recent loss in the last few years. Okay, you have to answer.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of the group questions I have for people, that because of your recent loss, because we're talking about emotion and sympathy and bias, and I'm talking about the death penalty, so I'm talking about, you've already determined premeditated murder has been presented and you found the person guilty. And now we're in the penalty phase. And when I talk about that, I'm telling everybody that it is an individual recommendation. It is going to be something that you're going to dig deep inside and make a decision whether or not you recommend death or recommend life. Okay? Earlier I was talking about, the evidence part of the case is going to be over. Okay? You're going to see pictures of a dead person. Okay? Hypothetically speaking, or imaginary speaking, as we sit here, it's easy for everybody to imagine a dead person. It's easy for everybody to kind of come off as, it's just another case that can be very impartial. But when we say the magnitude of this case is not simple for anybody, but for somebody that has suffered a loss, and this goes for everybody, anyone that suffered a loss, any family member, friend, somebody close to you, a colleague, somebody that's been through a really rough time and lost the battle with cancer, or whatever it may be. The emotions might overtake at some point. Sympathy is something else. You're going to see a courtroom full of people, courtroom full of family members from both sides. Things that are going to stir up some pressure. Right now, everybody's in the same boat. Whether they're trying to get out of here and not be on the panel, or whether they want to do their civic duty and be a part of it, or they're plugging through, waiting for that one question that's going to make or break the decision of the attorneys in the room. And then there's those of you that want to be a part of this. I think it's interesting. We are looking for fair and impartial verdicts. We want people to be able to say from the beginning to the end, and not say, gosh, I wish I would have just decided. Maybe if this was a burglary of a dwelling, I would be okay with it. But the magnitude of this case isn't something that we want anybody to step into that potentially thinks they're going to have to, or wish that they didn't. So I understand that you said you dug deep inside and you made that decision that it's going to be okay. Any concerns that we should have if you are chosen based on your own recent loss, that you're going to emotionally just not be able to do it? And all respect we give you.
No. Definitely. Different circumstances.
Of course.
Number one.
Yep.
Number two, I'm very strong.
Okay.
And number three, I feel like someone has to do this. And
we agree.
I believe in my heart that I can be fair and unbiased. And if I didn't, I would sit here and tell that.
Okay. Well, do you
the magnitude?
Yes. And do you understand, though, that I'm only asking because I feel like I have to just make sure that you're good.
Yeah.
So mitigation, you're going to be able to weigh that against any aggravators that are presented?
Definitely.
And make a decision based on your own individual decision, whether or not they outweigh or don't, or if they don't outweigh, you can still make a recommendation. And you can be fair to Eriese Tisdale. Thank you. Mr. Hazel. Oh, sorry, you're in the wrong seat.
Thank you.
You're Mr. Colon, right? Okay. Sorry, somebody did that. It wasn't me. I think that I was told earlier it was Mr. Eisenhower.
Yeah, he did. You all are done congratulating yourselves. Let's proceed, okay?
All right, I'm going to go back to Mr. Colon. microphone because it's only fair not to skip you. Mr. Cologne. You've been listening to what everybody has to say, right?
Yes.
Is there anything you can add as far as your ability to consider mitigation?
No, at the moment, everyone's pretty much covered it.
Okay, well, this is the moment. Do you remember about 4 hours ago when I said, everybody, please think about mitigation, things that you think are important to you, circumstances where you think the death zone is appropriate, circumstances where you think the life without parole is appropriate, right? I said that.
Yes.
So for you to say not now, after you've waited 4 hours, tomorrow's too late, did you ever hear that saying?
Yes.
Okay. So what are you trying to tell me?
Well, I have been giving it thought. Of course, sitting here and listening to everybody, a little bit more. And I haven't come across anything that wasn't covered yet. I know several people stated it very well. I agree with them. I know Miss Z back there.
Ms. Zimmerman?
Yes.
You call her Z because you're
No, I couldn't remember the full name. I just remembered Z.
I'm sure she gets that all the time.
She stated very well mitigating factors that I would like to hear, background, life story, that kind of thing, producing history and prior mental state before the crime, after the crime.
Keep going.
Yeah.
For someone that's as bored as you are, you remembered everything. Okay, so she says, and educator, she's done well today, right?
Yeah.
Okay. She just expresses it better than others, but she did express it well. And you think that you could be a fair and impartial person even after determining guilt in the first stage?
Yes.
And when you go into that second stage, you have a clean slate and make a decision based on your own individual weighing of the mitigators and aggravators.
Yes.
Where are you on the scale?
In the middle, just kind of blank slate.
A blank slate's not in the middle.
I mean, I know there was a...
I got a number scale here. Can somebody give me a number? Anybody?
5, I guess.
5?
If he were to be proven guilty, that means that his crime has been committed.
Right.
Your crime has been committed. That means that options.
Okay, you understand you only got 2 choices, life without parole and the death penalty. It doesn't get any more severe than that, correct?
Right.
Okay, so you think you're the type of person that can sit through and make that determination of guilt and still be able to consider mitigation?
Yes.
And still be able to consider the aggravators? Now, if there are 5 aggravators proven to you beyond reasonable doubt, no one's been mitigators, does that make you have to choose the death penalty? Or is that still a may choose the death penalty?
No, it's based on what I weigh, whether the mitigators outweigh the aggravators, or if I don't find the aggravators that weigh in.
Okay, so if there are 5 aggravators proven to you, and you're saying that you don't find them that weighty, which weighty also means sufficient, according to the law, you're saying that you could still consider recommendation of life in that scenario. Okay. But you also could consider a death penalty.
Yes.
Okay. All right. You're up.
How are you?
I'm not going to ask you a golf question. But I do want you to just give us your own explanation of the cart before the horse. Not that I think anyone's forgotten, but I just want to hear another view.
Well, I think as far as the cart before the horse goes, right now, your question to everybody has been, what if you find your defendant guilty? Trying to dissect how people feel about the death penalty or life without parole. I expressed earlier against the death penalty, although I do see both punishments as equal.
Okay.
Although I'm against it, it's still something I would ultimately consider. On your scale, I would put me probably about 2, below 2.
Okay.
Things that mitigating facts that you've been asking would be personal health, upbringing, past instances with police officers, what was the mental state at the time, and also I'd like to know the difference between, well, not difference, but I'd like to know how premeditated it is. Like if you were on the street, you said you were going to shoot the next person, that's still premeditated, but if you on the street and you said you were going to shoot the next male that was over 6 feet with red hair, it's a little bit more specific and possibly more premeditated. And if you had someone particular in mind, that would be even more so. So that would be something on the other side that I suppose would make me lean slightly more towards the death penalty, but it would take quite a lot.
Okay, so you're saying, because remember, hypothetically speaking, we're on the second phase. So you've already determined that premeditation, whether it's planned days before, or planned minutes before, seconds before, right? Okay, so you've already determined, make sure you say yes or no.
Yes.
You've already made that determination, that the rest of the jury, all 12 of you have unanimously decided it was premeditated, regardless of how long it took, okay? But you're saying that that's one of the factors from the trial that you would then acceptably carry over and make a determination, and you would also consider that as one of the factors in determining whether you would be comfortable choosing a death, leaning towards death.
That was an example.
Yeah, no, that's an example. We're all talking about it here. Are there any circumstances, and I know based on you said you're number 2 on the scale. Are there any horrific incidences, knowing that all deaths, murder cases are horrible? Are there any circumstances where you think that you could, you think that it's appropriate for the death penalty, setting aside your personal beliefs?
No.
You just couldn't go there?
No, at least from what I can think of, for the 9 people in front of me that passed the bar exam, maybe could convince me, but no.
Well, like I said, there's certain people in this room that we know that, we don't know who all of you are yet, but we know that there's something that makes you up that you're just not going to be able to be swayed or be able to go there. And we want that honesty. We want to know that information about you because it's important to this person over here that we have fair and impartial. Sure. That's what this all is about. So, I said hypothetically earlier, we talk about, a terrorist, or we talk about, taking a baby and cutting the baby up in a new box, burying bodies in your attic or in your basement, and you hear about gruesome tales. You're saying none of that. There are no circumstances that you could ever consider, that you would ever consider the death penalty, that it's just your makeup.
No, I suppose in this situation, potentially it could change, but I'd like to say no.
You're saying in this situation, or I'm talking about the hypothetical, where the body was
hypothetical
taken up.
situation. But no, still with me.
All right. Thank you. Ms. Cullen, Morera, Catherine. Yes, ma'am. Good evening. Sorry. It's my everything what you did. They butchered my name. Actually, my name has been changed to a 3-letter name. I don't know how, but it's not over the years. As you've been sitting here, first you'll be up, and I'm going to ask you the same questions I've asked each and every person here. Okay? As you're composed. Do do you have anything you can add to the mitigation that you would think would be important in this case?
I go along with what most people said, along with mental health, drug issues. However, I would like to know if at the time substance abuse was a factor of the crime, or if there's been previous history with the victim. If so, what kind of history? Also, personal issues, if at home there have been personal issues or not. But other than that, I would agree with everybody else that they were saying.
Okay, so those are things that are important to you.
Yes, ma'am.
And if you heard them, they would be something that you would consider.
Yes, ma'am.
If you're not presented them, remember, hypothetically speaking, these are just kind of like, we talk about wish lists. What would you like when you're making a decision? So we can get to know the kind of things that you think you would like to weigh in on.
Yes, ma'am.
That's how we get to know a little bit more about you and your thought process. But you feel that you can sit through the first phase of the trial involving first-degree murder, premeditated law enforcement officer, make a decision, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And then go to the next phase, like I told everybody, that it is the same burden of proof for the state to prove those aggravations beyond reasonable doubt, right? But the mitigators, in a sense, has to prove by the greater weight of the evidence, basically, whether or not they're true. We can present 50, we can present 2.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay? And what we're requesting of the juror, or be of you, is individually, are you willing to consider mitigation, or would you just be close to it if a premeditated murder was found in the first stage?
I would consider mitigation, as well as you were asking some people some certain kind of cases that I would think of.
Okay, and
I actually have 2 examples.
Okay.
The first one would be recently Bella Vaughn, formerly known as Baby Doe,
Okay.
with Miss Vaughn and Mr. McCarthy. In that case, I would actually choose life, even if the mitigators were above the aggravators.
Okay.
In that case, I would choose life instead of death.
Okay.
Because of basically, sorry, I kind of lost.
No, that's okay. Take a minute.
I guess because they knew exactly what was going on all that time that had passed, the mother lying saying that the child was in PCS, just covering up for her boyfriend instead of sticking up for her deceased daughter. And then there would be the other case recently down in Homestead in Miami. That case I would actually choose no, because it was so diabolical, even though I haven't been following it that much. I've just been hearing a few things, but I believe one of the mitigators was that the ringleader, or whatever you like to call him, his mother was murdered, and then that has gone into insanity. In that case, some people would think that is a little higher of a mitigator, and I think the case is so diabolical that that has nothing to do. I would choose death in that case.
You would want to consider that.
Exactly.
Okay. So basically,
Well, I would consider the mitigator, but for me, it would outweigh, the aggravator would outweigh the mitigator in that case.
So, and in order to follow the law, what you're required to do is to consider both. But remember, the law is very clear. If the mitigators outweigh the aggravators, you must choose.
Or if the mitigators outweigh the aggravator, you must choose life.
Okay, and if the aggravators outweigh the mitigators,
You may choose death, but you cannot choose life.
and if there are no mitigators proven, that aggravators are proven,
You can still choose life. Yes.
or you can also choose death. Okay. Ms. Person, how are you? Good. Do not say ditto to your husband's answer, if you know that that's not okay. Okay. Would it be difficult for you to sit on the second phase of a death penalty case if you filed first-degree murder? No. But you'd be on the first phase. To find guilt?
to go through the part of this stuff when we were talking about.
Okay, well, let's talk about that for a minute, because that's why I mentioned it. Because like I said, there are certain people that are just going to break down when that happens. It's obviously something that has to be a part of the case, okay? So you're saying in the first part of the case, that's worrisome for you?
Yes.
Okay. Do you understand the charges?
Yes.
Okay, you understand that obviously there is a dead person,
Yes.
and that's going to be part of it.
Yes.
And like I said, up until we actually start the trial, you're not going to be seeing any of that physical evidence. And so in La La Land here, we just can, it's like you can visualize it. When's the last time you went and saw a gory, horrific, scary movie at the movie theater? Okay. So you like that kind of stuff. Which is the movie you saw? Go ahead. Please don't say that.
It's Black Man.
Okay.
Every time the shots were up there, I didn't look.
Okay, so you looked away.
Yes.
Yeah, you wouldn't even get into a movie like that, see? But I'm thinking you maybe had a weak stomach, but I think it's for other reasons that you're saying, that sympathy and empathy would come into your mind if you saw the reality of the person
The
there.
empathy would be there. I just didn't physically look.
Okay, well, do you think that would affect your ability to make a decision in the case? You're supposed to make a decision in the first phase based on it's a unanimous vote. So you think that not looking at the pictures? Yeah. Okay. So that's where you think that you won't be able to give Mr. Tisdale a fair trial. Thank you. Mr. Green?
Yes.
Hi. Don't want to lose you.
No, you don't.
Okay. Very patiently. Very kind face looking at me. Same question. Is this the type of case that you think you can sit on the first phase, get through the evidence, make a determination, hypothetically found guilty first-degree murder of law enforcement officer with a firearm? Second phase, you'd be able to consider mitigation in aggravating circumstance factors.
Yes.
Weigh them.
Yes.
Okay. On your questionnaire, what were you?
C.
You were C. Some circumstances and not some circumstances. Are there any circumstances that you just think is too egregious for you?
Not without knowing all the circumstances of that case.
Okay. And is that something that you were of the opinion of before you came in here, or now that you've just been given this flood of education that you said, gosh, that really makes sense? That
No, that's where I am always. Got to be informed.
Okay, that's good. So you're open to listening to everything before you make that recommendation?
Yes.
And you can choose a life sentence where you think it's appropriate, and that's what the evidence presented in the guilt penalty phase?
Yes.
As well as you can choose death if you feel that that's sufficiently proved to you?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
As well as you can choose death if you feel that that's sufficiently proved to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Ms. Roan? You said you can follow the law? Yes. And after everything that we've been discussing today, you feel comfortable being in hypothetically being in the penalty phase?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay? And weighing the aggravating mitigants before you make a recommendation? Okay, Ms. Smith? Yes. Hi. Hi. You mentioned in your questionnaire that you actually were on the way to get the kids when you saw the funeral procession and you got caught in it.
I just remember the traffic being kind of nutty.
Okay. That's not something that should concern us, that you're going to be sitting there if you were to be in the second phase of the trial and, it just overwhelms you
No.
going through your mind.
No, the question asked what I remembered, and that's what I remembered.
And we appreciate you giving us that information. But you also said that you didn't attend the funeral.
No.
Okay. But but I wanted you just to follow it up, that that wasn't something that you were going to be considering at the trial, after the second phase.
No, I will not.
Okay. Is there any circumstances where you think somebody that is found guilty of premeditated murder before you came in here that warranted either the death penalty or a life sentence?
Probably much like a lot of other people in my mind, more heinous crime, mass murder. Coming in, I would have thought those were more deserving of the death penalty.
And you're saying, normally speaking, in your mind, that's what comes to mind.
Right.
But now that you know the law,
Now, I would...
where are you on the scale?
Yes.
Where are you?
The middle.
The middle? Is there a number in the middle?
I'm 0.5.
Okay.
Right in the middle.
Thank you. Well, that would be the middle of 11, then. Just saying. That's okay.
I'll go back to
I don't mind. I get the gist. What I want to know from you, though, is when you said, in your mind, that's probably very normal for most people. But now, the law is we're not in the movie theater. We're not making a decision overnight as to penalty phase here. We're not asking you to make any commitment. What we want to know is now that you know the law, and hypothetically found somebody guilty of premeditated murder, cart before the horse, we're now in the penalty phase. If you are the type of person, based on your own makeup and upbringing, and knowing that the penalty phase is an individual recommendation, something that you're going to leave, if you're part of this trial and you're going to leave here, that's going to be your remembrance, okay? And you're going to be able to weigh the mitigation and the aggravators and follow the law that's applied, the law that I've told everybody, the judge has told. Are you comfortable with that?
Yes.
Is there any confusion as far as the law?
No.
You, based on your own, examples of before you came in here, the law says that a death penalty sentence is appropriate in premeditated murder in Florida. Okay? Not just mass murderers, like you said, that's in your mind. Are you saying that in the penalty phase, if you get to a year, that you will, based on a single murder, and in this case, hypothetically, law enforcement, that you can still weigh aggravators that are proven to you beyond a reasonable doubt against mitigators that are proven to you by the greater weight of the evidence, and come up with a recommendation for whatever it may be.
Yes.
Okay. And you're not weighing, you said you're 5.5, so 5.5 actually is weighing more towards the death penalty, okay? Okay, that's okay. But you're saying that you're doing it. I'm just kind of making a fun of you. I got what you meant. Okay. But you're going to weigh everything before you make that recommendation. It will be individual. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Ms. Martinez? Yes. How are you doing? Good, thank you. Have you been enjoying your stay with us? Have you been able to follow everything? You said you're very good at understanding everything? Okay, you're very sweet looking back at me, shaking your head. Make sure you speak up when you talk, okay? Okay, do you think that, I think Mr. Racketall addressed it with you. Do you think your language barrier is going to affect you to hear everything and understand everything?
Well, I can hear everything, and I understand pretty much everything you're saying.
Okay.
But what I am afraid is, I was listening before that the judge is going to give us instructions in written papers.
Right.
I can read and I can follow instructions, but what I mean is, if you have witnesses and then
They're gonna...
if I don't get, the exactly meaning of the words they're saying.
Okay, that's an amendment. That, you think that that might come into play? That might be difficult for you to sit on this case. It's obviously a very important case, right?
Yes.
Okay, so,
I am here to be fair and impartial, and this is an important case, and I think I need to understand everything, and that way I can wait.
right.
Okay.
And we appreciate you being here. You're saying that you think because of your language barrier that you might not be able to get everything.
Yeah.
And it's too important of a case for us to not be concerned about that. Okay, we appreciate your candor. Thank you. Okay. Ms. Fontano? Aye. Have you been paying attention? We didn't lose you yet? Okay. Same scenario, hypothetically, where after penalty phase, found someone guilty of premeditated murder. Highest crime you can find somebody guilty of in the state of Florida, right? 2 sentences, life without parole and the death penalty.
Yes, I'll be able to.
Keep going.
Ms. Fontana, you can speak up just a little bit because I can't hear you.
He wants you to speak up.
Okay. I can be fair,
Okay.
mitigation, can
Consider it.
consider it, and waive them, yeah.
Okay, you were a 3, you were a C.
I would see.
You're where on the scale?
Fine.
You're a 5. Okay, can you think of any circumstances where you think automatically warrant the death penalty?
Now I believe that everybody covered a lot.
Okay. But are you under the opinion of anything outside of here that you thought was worthy of that in your lifetime?
Maybe the maritime bomb, or like that.
Okay, that's like terrorists.
Yeah.
Those people like that, that in your mind, that's somebody that stands out as that person should get the death penalty.
Yeah.
Okay. That being said, in a case of this nature, you know what the charges are. First-degree murder of law enforcement officer with a gun, right?
Yes.
Okay. And if you were to sit on the first part and find guilt, now you're on the second part, you're saying you're not predisposed to any verdict right off the bat.
Right.
Based on everything you've heard here, you said you're going to follow the law, which
Yeah.
to me, everybody has said that, but we got to go further than that, right? Oh, is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay. Based on your understanding of the law, are you open to considering mitigation?
Yes.
And your example, obviously, your example is not before the court as far as somebody that deserves the death penalty based on the nature of the charges. You know what the charges are for first-degree murder of a law enforcement officer with a gun. You're not automatically thinking that you would never be able to consider a death sentence. But you would consider mitigation and aggravation to prove it to you.
Yeah.
And you understand that the weight of the burden of proof by the aggravators that the state has to prove is a higher burden than the defense has to prove on mitigators, right?
Yeah.
Are you comfortable with all the choices that you're given with the mays and the buts?
Yeah.
Okay? And you're willing to listen to everything before you make that recommendation, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much. Oh, I almost feel like, now I feel like I'm on a regular jury panel. How you guys doing? Okay, everyone take a sleep out of their eyes. No one's really paying attention to you. But I still have to ask you the same kind of questions, okay? Who wants to go first? Okay. All right. Mr. Burns, right?
Yes.
Are you retired?
Yes.
Okay, what did you do for profession?
30 years I was with the telephone company as a supervisor over the switching offices.
Okay. And did you have any jury duty?
Yes.
Okay, that was out of state, did you say?
Ohio.
Ohio. Okay. ever been in a situation where you were on a capital case? Okay, so this would be your first capital case if you were chosen? Okay.
I had a grand jury once,
Which
civil trials.
Oh, okay. And grand jury for civil trials, are you saying, or grand jury for capital cases, and you made a determination that they should go forward?
They were criminal cases, and I'm not sure they were capital cases.
Okay. All in Ohio? Okay. Now, you've been sitting here through all of this, and you were one of the ones that believed strongly in the death penalty, right? Okay. And where are you on the scale?
I'm still a firm believer in the death penalty.
Okay. On the case of premeditated murder?
Yes.
Are there any circumstances in premeditated murder where you think a life without parole is an appropriate sentence?
I'm sure there could be.
Okay. So, hypothetically speaking, you've determined premeditated murder in the case, okay? And now you're sitting in the jury for the penalty phase, so you've already made that determination. As a strong believer in the death penalty, do you think that belief will impair your ability to consider mitigation?
No, I consider myself an open-minded person. I consider all the facts and weigh them carefully before I make that decision.
Okay. So, the law was instructed to you, right? There's a circumstance where, say, hypothetically, 4 aggravators were proven to you beyond a reasonable doubt, and there's only 2 mitigators presented. Are you still going to consider the mitigation, or are those aggravators going to make you impair your ability to consider the mitigation?
I consider everything.
Okay. If the mitigators in premeditated murder, the charges before you, obviously we're in penalty phase, mitigators outweigh the aggravators, are you going to be able to make a recommendation of life, because that's what the law is?
I think so.
Okay. Okay. What does think mean to you?
You have to consider everything that's presented to you and weigh it carefully as directed by the law.
Right.
And then make a decision.
Right. Well, when I give you the hypothetical, though, I'm saying that the mitigators outweigh the aggravators. And the law in Florida says if that's the case, you must recommend life. Would you be able to do that in my hypothetical situation? Because that's what would be required of you.
Yes.
Okay. And if no mitigators were proven and only aggravators, you may recommend death. Right? Is there ever a circumstance in premeditated murder that you think warrants automatically death? That you had an opinion outside? I mean,
2 cases I can think of.
okay.
The one happened here in Florida. A couple in Miami that took their foster children, killed a girl, and almost killed a boy. And the other case was up in Cleveland. The gentleman that kidnapped 3 women and kept them, tortured them for 10 years. I think he's probably going to get life.
He's dead. He killed himself.
But those 2 cases come to my mind.
Okay. As somebody that would automatically warrant the death penalty, if you had any say in it, basically, so that's what I'm asking you, hypothetically. Yes. Okay. So when you say that you're, like we don't want to tell you that you can't have your beliefs because we know that's part of your makeup, but in a case involving, hypothetically, now you're at the penalty phase, on my hypothetical, are you open to listening to mitigation and weighing it, and also weighing the aggravation?
Oh, yes.
Aggravated is proven to be beyond reasonable. Okay.
Yes, I can.
Okay. And if the law warrants it, you will choose life if it warrants it. Thank you. Rose Barthold? Barthold? Okay. Are you soft-spoken? I don't know if you're soft-spoken or you're not feeling well. Okay, I shouldn't even say that. I was going to say sometimes I am, but I can't lie. That is not true. Okay. You two, you said that you are more towards very few exceptions on your original questionnaire as your opinion of the death penalty. Okay. Tell me a little bit about that.
I do remember exactly.
Ma'am, I need you to speak up, I'm sorry.
I do not remember exactly the answer, but I do believe that I am dealing with people's lives.
Okay.
So when it comes to death penalty, I do have concern about it.
Okay. Please share that concern with us. You're going to be sympathetic? Is that your concern?
Well, I should say, I don't think it's, I don't want to say appropriate, but my own opinion kind of is, we're not here to take people's lives.
Right.
So I strongly believe the life sentence is severe enough
Okay.
to cover this case, but I'm willing to work with the law
Okay.
and go with the facts, with evidence that you guys have.
Okay. So even though you have your personal opinions, which everybody in this room does, even if they aren't saying they do, we all know, we all have them. You're saying that you have them. You're expressing them to us. But you're telling us, based on what you've heard here in the law that's been instructed, you're going to follow the law, even though it will be difficult, which we expect it to be difficult. Okay, that's not a problem. Okay? What is it that you said you do for a living? You said you work with who?
I am working as a registered nurse.
Okay.
I have a kidney cancer.
Okay.
So basically I'm dealing with people's lives.
Okay. Okay, well you understand that working in the medical field, helping people, nurturing people to get better, and I'm sure there's people that die there too, right?
Yes.
Okay.
When it comes to that, I see, yes, I do have people that die on me, on my hand.
Right.
Which is a natural death.
Right.
I understand.
Like that.
And I go along with that.
Okay.
But,
And we understand, and like I said, this is not a case for everybody to sit on. Okay, it just isn't. This isn't the time to test your ability to do the right thing, so to speak, or to test your ability to follow the law, or to set your own opinions aside if your makeup doesn't allow you to do that. And we can respect that. But you're telling us also that after listening to the law and all the instructions on, I'm only talking about death penalty, right? That you're saying that you will be able to follow the law even though. So if the aggravators are proven to you beyond a reasonable doubt, and there's 5 aggravators or 2 aggravators, because they only need to prove 1 in Florida, that's the law. So say they only prove 1 aggravator. But in your hypothetical, I want to have more aggravators proven, okay? So they've proven 4 aggravators and 3 mitigators, okay? The aggravators outweigh the mitigators. And the law instructed on you is you may recommend death. Are you going to be able to consider the mitigators and weigh them and consider those aggravators that were proven beyond a reasonable doubt, weigh them before you make a decision whether your decision is life or death, but you may recommend death in those circumstances if the aggravators outweigh the mitigators, right? Yes. Okay. And what the law requires is that you consider the aggravators and the mitigators. Okay? The law also instructs you that you never have to choose death for the recommendation, but you have to be able to consider making that choice. You understand that? Okay, and you're saying that you're able to follow the law? Okay, thank you. Ms. Cheatham, how are you doing? Oh, terrific. The death penalty is appropriate in all murder cases. That was your opinion when you came in here? Okay. I think you're one of our younger jurors. How old are you? You're 19. You're taking college classes? Okay. Any of them legal classes? No.
Ms. Cheatham, if you could speak up, because I can't hardly hear you.
Yeah, remember, you got to talk to the little blue man up there. I mean, I guess if I get close to you, people think they can talk lower, but it only makes me feel more comfortable when I'm closer. What is this? Give me 3 things that you feel that you need to help you consider mitigation in the penalty phase if we were to get there.
Definitely background.
Okay.
History, you know.
Speak up while you're at it.
I would definitely say the biggest thing is the background. Definitely.
Okay.
Then character, if there is a previous history between the two, that would be my top 3.
Okay. And like I said, originally you came in here and you think murder, death penalty.
Yes.
After we've explained to you what the law is in the state of Florida, do you think that that's still the appropriate sentence right off the bat if someone's found guilty of premeditated murder?
Yes.
You do. Okay. The rest of the law that comes with that, if you've made that decision in the guilt phase, is when you start the penalty phase. Are you able to set aside that and consider the mitigators, or are you already, because it's premeditated murder, is what you've determined the person is guilty of, that the death penalty is the only appropriate sentence?
No, I will be able to be open-minded to life without parole.
If what?
If like the facts and everything is like human.
Okay. So even though that's your mindset when you came in here, you're saying you're still open to listening?
Yeah.
So not every case now
No.
should get the death penalty?
No.
Okay. So you're saying that that was your opinion on the outside, just not knowing exactly what it consisted of? You gotta just speak up. Yes, she said. Okay. And are you able to follow the law if, in fact, the mitigators outweigh the aggravators?
Yes.
And that would mean you must choose mitigators outweigh the aggravators. Choose, recommend, I'm sorry.
Right, because
Mitigation is the reason for life.
life or death.
No, mitigation is the reason for life. Aggravators are the ones that you weigh, and if they prove beyond a reasonable doubt, that would be a reason for you to be able to recommend death if the aggravators outweigh the mitigators. Okay? All right. Irregardless, if the mitigators don't outweigh the aggravators, okay, are you still able to consider the mitigators before you make a decision? And your recommendation will be yours individually as a person?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, the only other concern I had is, did you say that you talk a little bit with your family? Your family, you live with your family still?
Yes.
Okay. This going to be your individual decision, or is it going to be what everybody told you to do?
No, that would be my individual
Okay.
decision.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Ryber? Ryber. How are you?
All right.
Still working at the power plant? Just kidding.
Oh, so,
You might have to relearn your job. They might put you in another division, might be better. Where are you on my scale?
It's tough to judge on the scale.
Don't tell me that you need to know the facts of the case, because you know why we're here.
It's all hypothetical, I know.
I know.
And so, I mean, I answered that I believe in some cases the death penalty can be used, and I would, whether that's for a single murder or multiple murders, I think there could be situations where I believe it could be used. But then there's many other cases where I would believe that you don't have to use the death penalty.
Can you give me any examples of when life without parole would be appropriate?
I would probably go life without parole on the majority of them, unless I would see severe cases of multiple murders where a person, I believe, has no chance or shows no chance of change of mind. Where they're set, even though they receive their penalty, you know, they would continue in harm of other people. That they would still think about, you know, killing other people. I would say that would be a case for the death penalty.
Okay. We gave you the law.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you found somebody guilty of premeditated murder. You know the only two options are life or death. Here is law enforcement officer. Okay. Then throw in 2 more aggravators are proven to be beyond a reasonable doubt. Only one mitigator has been presented to you that you feel the greater weight of the evidence that it's true. Okay? Could you, under those circumstances, hypothetically, consider the death penalty as a sentence? Because the law says aggravators outweigh the mitigators. You may choose death. Will you be willing to consider it?
Yes, but in my opinion, it would have to outweigh mitigators.
Okay, well that's when you're supposed to consider it, when it outweighs the mitigators. If it doesn't outweigh that mitigators, you're supposed to choose life. That's what the law we've instructed you on.
Yes.
Okay, are you comfortable with that?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Howard, are you still with us?
Well, I'm here.
I am. Waiting patiently, and you're a rule follower.
I hope I am after
Well,
20 years of dealing with them.
You told us earlier, just like everybody else in here, we're going to follow the law, right?
Yes.
Is there any circumstances that you feel automatically warrant the death penalty?
Terrorism. Anything else I'd have to think about very seriously.
Okay. When we say think about it, hypothetically you're in a case where you just determined premeditated murder in Florida.
Well, it's the biggest decision of my life.
Okay. As I think it would hopefully be most people that get picked on the jury, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you're going to take it very serious, right?
Yes.
Okay. And human nature tells us it's not really something that we're comfortable doing, right? Making a decision on whether somebody lives or dies.
In a non-military situation, yes.
Okay. Setting aside your military life, because that,
It's gone.
in a situation where we understand and respect that that's what happens in a military situation in time of war, right? Okay. So setting that aside for a minute, in a case in which, in Florida, you were to sit on, premeditated murder has been determined, we're now in the penalty phase, the two phases that we've explained to you exist, and you have to decide life or death. Those are your two options. Okay? I understand you're saying it would be difficult choosing the death penalty over life without parole, but as we gave you the law, do you feel that going into the penalty phase that you can consider the mitigating factors and weigh them against the aggravating factors that have been proven to you beyond a reasonable doubt, if any?
I would consider it very carefully.
Okay. Well, we would want everybody to,
I
though.
could do it,
Right?
but the mitigators would have to. I mean, the aggravators would have to be stronger.
Okay. The aggravators outweigh the mitigators. The law says. You remember the law on that one?
Yes.
What does the law say?
It says I still have the choice
Of choosing life.
life over death.
Right. But you have to, if the aggravators outweigh the mitigators and they've been proven beyond a reasonable doubt, right? You as a juror, you are to consider
I would consider it very seriously.
choosing